Ladies and gentlemen, Satoru Gojo is still alive!
Some may call me crazy, delusional, or stuck in a constant state of denial. But the truth of the matter is this. Despite what the general consensus is for Jujutsu Kaisen manga readers, I cannot and will not believe that this is the end for Gojo. There are just too many red flags for me at the moment, and the culmination of those flags stopped me from crossing over from the skeptic side. So in this video, I'll be presenting numerous bits of proof for the case of Satoru Gojo's comeback. By the way, make sure you like this video. It takes like 2 seconds and it helps me out more than you could ever possibly imagine, and I'll be eternally grateful, okay? Okay. Now the first thing I want to look at is the supposed death of Gojo itself, which takes place in chapter 236, and the chapter strangely starts not with a continuation of the battle between Gojo and Sukuna, but instead we're shown Gojo and Geto from their younger days talking about the events of the past few chapters, and about how strong Sukuna really is, and how he didn't even go all out when facing the legendary Six Eyes user, and how Gojo was sorry that he couldn't make him go all out. We then see more and more people appear as the chapter goes on, such as Nanami, Haibara, the principal, and even Riko. And what do all of these characters showing up have in common? Well, there's two answers to that question. The first being they're his friends that played a part in his earlier years, his arguably happier years. And secondly, they're all dead. And if Gojo is in a place with all of his dead allies, then it's only natural to assume he's no longer in the world of the living. And as we come to the end of the chapter, that summation seems to be justified with Gojo's current physical state. He's half the man he used to be, and he's bleeding profusely. Sukuna then acknowledges him, and the chapter ends explicitly saying Gojo is dead, and a new opponent enters onto the field. However, despite all of those signs indicating Gojo has actually passed away, like the literal chapter telling you that he has, there's equally as many signs that say the opposite. And the first one that comes to mind is, in the supposed afterlife, all the characters we see are not only from Gojo's younger years, but they all specifically have their look from the hidden inventory arc. And in that arc, we learn something about Gojo when it pertains to killing him. Because after Toji attempted to end the Six Eyes user by surpassing Infinity and stabbing him repeatedly in the leg, chest, throat, and even face, Gojo survives, and when the two meet again, he overtly states that if Toji wanted to be successful in killing him, he should have done one of two things. Either cut off his head or use a cursed tool to stab him in the head. And because he didn't do either, Gojo is still standing. Now to take it back to chapter 236, the only damage we see that's been done to Gojo is he lost an arm again and he's been cut in half. But his head and brain are very much still intact. Therefore, it's within reason to assume, following the statements made prior and using the series' own logic, that Gojo is still alive. He may be on the brink of death, much like how he was when he fought Toji, and the caliber of the opponent may be wildly different, but if his head is still attached, I'm not buying he's dead. Plus, he already regrew an arm a couple chapters ago, so why couldn't he just do the same on a greater scale? Now, the other thing I'd like to draw attention to from chapter 236 are the words said. Near the beginning of the chapter, when Gojo initially enters into this area and talks with Geto, he states that he's hoping what he's experiencing right now is just his imagination. But by the end of it all, after interacting with all of his fallen comrades, he's praying for the contrary. He doesn't want this to be his imagination, but his reality. But there's more to it all than just that. In this afterlife, I think Gojo has to make a decision. He can bring himself back from the brink, it's just a matter of want. He can head north or he can head south. The decision is his to make. So with that being said, why do I think Gojo's going to return? The answer is because he's unsatisfied. And it's interesting because that lack of satisfaction is exactly what the audience's reaction was to his defeat. And narratively, if there's a way for the honored one to return, it just doesn't make sense for Gojo to leave it up to everyone else, because quite frankly, they don't stand a chance at winning without him. I mean, look at the roster of current players in the battle against Sukuna now. I don't know about you, but when I take a look at the remaining fighters we have left, I'm not exactly filled with a lot of confidence. Kashimo was supposedly the Gojo of the previous era, and he got annihilated in like a chapter. Then there's Yuji, and while it makes the most sense for him to be the one to finally end Sukuna after all the torment he's brought to Yuji, I just don't know how you close the power gap between the two. Even if he gets another curse technique or domain expansion, which would be awesome, that's just not enough for a justified win. Now, Yuta, I would say, is probably the one I have the most faith in when it comes to finishing the job power-wise. I mean, he has Rika, who's called the Queen of Curses, and Sukuna's the King of Curses, so the match kind of writes itself with those titles. But even though Yuta is a good option, I still find it hard to believe that he'd be the one to end the reign of Sukuna. For one, he bent the knee to Kashimo, and for two, this also kind of isn't his story. JJK0 was. But maybe if you were to copy Gojo's abilities, then that's a different story, but if Yuta's going to make his way over to Gojo's body, then instead of copying a technique, he should help him heal with RCT, Reverse Curse Technique. Regardless though, the same goes for the rest. Kinji, Mai, Hiromi, they cannot win. And it's not even just because of the overwhelming strength of Sukuna. It's also because they need to keep an eye out for the person who put them in their current predicament in the first place, Kenjaku. And here's a crackpot theory for you. Let's just say for argument's sake that Gojo is actually dead, and he makes the choice to leave it in our current fighter's hands. If that happens, then I guarantee you Kenjaku will find his body and take it over in the exact same way he did with Geto. And then it's really over. Because if you do the math, evil Gojo plus Sukuna equals instant death squared. You dying twice over. Although, in Shibuya, right before Prison Realm sealed away Gojo, he was able to reach a part of Geto's remaining soul, and that soul took over a part of the body and started choking Kenjaku for like half a second before the body fully returned back to Kenjaku. So something similar could possibly occur if Gojo's body was taken over, but I imagine it would be on a much larger scale considering the power difference between Gojo and Geto. Like, I could see Gojo fully taking back control of his body for at least a couple minutes. Then you don't need to worry about Kenjaku for the time being, and Jujutsu Kaisen can do what it does best. The jumping would be generational. Gang up of the century. This one going down in the history books. I mean, the top players of Jujutsu Kaisen just jumping the hell out of Sukuna. I'd want to see that. And you could kind of have the same outcome if Gojo just comes back normally, but then you'd have to remove at least one player so that they could go deal with Kenjaku, wherever he actually is. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, with all that said, that's going to do it for this one. I am of the utmost certainty that Gojo will return. It literally doesn't make sense to me for this to be his end. I know the mangaka isn't the biggest fan of the character, but to end his story in this manner, to end it in such an unsatisfying way, it's just incomprehensible. You didn't even see him get cut in half in any of the chapters, in 236 or in 237 or at the end of 235. You'd never even see it. It just doesn't make sense. But let me know in the comment section how you feel about this video, and do you believe that Gojo will return? And while you're down there, make sure you also like and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on the next upload. Now, peace out, everybody. Gojo Satoru will make a comeback, I guarantee it.